Before I say anything, I'm going to say that this is purely my opinion. I am not trying to offend anybody. I am not trying to bring anybody down, and I may spoil some things for you. But this is a little bit of a rant about how I felt about the new 2018 Black Panther. I was able to see it on Thursday at its premiere, and I saw it with only white friends. I didn't have any black friends that wanted to go see it at that time, I guess, but I saw it with all white guys. And everyone loved it but me. And they were surprised because being black, they were like, "Why didn't you like it?" In my opinion, this movie was very problematic for black people. That's why I didn't like it. And the reason they didn't understand is because they didn't understand the messages that were in this movie. I am a media studies major. I study media, I study communication as well. And so I've been able to research and review some of the things that make media what it is. And one of the things that we've talked about religiously is framing. This movie framed a lot of issues very well, so well to the point that it's like dog whistle politics, where if you know what they're saying, actually what they're saying, you hear it, but nobody else does. This movie was very brutal towards black men because it put us into two categories. It put us into Prince T'Challa, well spoken, really articulate, and carries himself well. Then you have his cousin, spoiler, who talks like a thug, acts like a thug, is a criminal. The bad guy graduated from college. He enlisted in the military after he graduated from college. He was so good at what he did that he was pulled into a special forces operation. And he was so smart that he was able to take down foreign governments for the CIA, according to the dude in the movie. Yet he talks and acts like a stereotypical black man being portrayed in the media. Irate, stubborn, loud, obnoxious, in your face with curse words, and disobedient. And not to mention that he's a killer. He just kills. And what that does over time, this has been proven, it's been studied, that exposure to media such as that will convince people that people who talk and act like the way that the evil guy did in this film will equate that to people in real life. That if someone acts like that and talks like that in real life, they must be bad. They must be criminals. They must be killers. They must be evil. Why couldn't both princes be well spoken, carry themselves well? That's one problem I had with this movie, and probably the biggest one. The next ones are just my opinion, but this one is something that I guess is more sensitive towards the black culture. You have in the black culture the concept of living in the ghetto and making it out. People who make it out of the ghetto are seen by people who did not as traitors, as sellouts. They turn their back on their culture for making it out. And that's honestly the premise of this movie. You have the bad guy who gets upset with Wakanda for turning their back on all the different black people around the world and allowing them to be oppressed. And in real life, this has also been tackled in the show Blackish and in Medea Goes to Jail. Those are just two that I can remember, but I know it's been tackled several times before, where there's this them versus us mentality within our culture. With black people, you have the rich, successful ones, and then you have the people living in poverty who they resent each other for their differences, even though, guess what? We're one and the same. Not just because we're black, but because we're people. And that was a problem I had in this film because my friends who I went with, all of them are white. They didn't understand that. They didn't understand that that was actually an issue, that that was a thing. And so we looked it up and I showed them the history of those who make it out versus those who don't. for that to have been the sole concept behind this movie, the main issue behind this movie, I felt was just mm, dumb. Even if that was the premise of a comic book arc from the Black Panther, there's so many different ways they could have gone about doing this film that they should have done that. They should have done something else. They could have done anything else but bring up that issue. Because in our community, it still hasn't been resolved. We still have this stigma about people who make it out of the ghetto versus people that don't. And it gets brought up a lot, but nothing ever gets solved. That's issue number 2. Third, I've been called the N word, I'm not sure how many times. And every time it happens, it doesn't feel any better. It actually, as you grow older, it makes you feel worse about who you are and where you live. Because I was under the impression things were getting better. They're not. I'm still called the N word at least 5 times a year, which is kind of sad. This time it's only happened twice, but then again, it's only February. So, I mean, it is what it is. That being said, all the racist jokes aimed at white people in this film were uncalled for. If we as black people know what it's like to be called the N word or something of the sort that is aimed at our skin color, why would we enjoy laughing at people being called colonizer or talking about another white boy to fix, white wolf, things like that? There are subtle jabs that are meant to be like, ha ha ha, but in the reality of it, even though it's not as harsh as hearing the N word, it's still a joke aimed at someone based off the color of their skin. And I'm not sure how you feel about it, but I don't care for things like that. If our point is to change how we are as a society, not just black people, but everyone in general, we gotta stop making fun of people and pointing out that we're of different skin color. Because that's not going to help anybody. It's just not. The fourth and final thing in this film that I didn't care for was the lack of sensuality and sexuality. In media, if it's not a romance film or not a overly sexual action film, like say Daredevil, you're not going to have not Daredevil, Triple X. You're not going to have black women being sexualized. And in the media, I want you to think about this seriously. If it's not a movie like the one I talked about, how often do you hear a black woman being called or referred to as beautiful? It's a problem. Black girls growing up never hear in the media that they are beautiful. This film had quite a few beautiful black women, and none of them were called outright beautiful. Oh, you're lovely. Oh, you look good today, but you're not beautiful. I don't lust after you. Why not? I would lust after them if I were straight, because those women were hot, in my opinion. Scarlett Johansson was introduced as the Black Widow in Iron Man 2, and the entire movie she was sexualized. You had the X-Men series. Famke Jensen, the one who played Jean Grey, was sexualized by both Scott and Wolverine. Halle Berry was standing right there. No one said shit about her. What the fuck? Black women can't be called beautiful in media. This was a film with several beautiful black women that weren't sexualized at all. Typically, that would be a bad thing, sexualizing women. But when they're never sexualized, and it's because of the color of their skin, that's the time to redial it back and say, you know what, let's go ahead and forego all those rules and tell these women that they are wanted, that they are desirable. Because who doesn't want to be desirable? Don't be offensive with it, but don't say that they can't be beautiful. That kiss at the end of the movie was, to me, very forced and very uncomfortable because that level of romance, it just wasn't there. The chemistry wasn't there because the entire time it was, I like you a lot too. I sort of love you, I love you too. But there was no, I need you, I have to have you in my life. I can think of several other movies with a predominantly black cast where there has been either a white, Asian, or Hispanic woman that has been lusted after by a black man. I can't really say the same for a predominantly white cast with a black woman. I'm not sure if you guys can think of anything, but if you do, please leave the name of the movie and the characters involved in the comments below. I understand that you guys are going to destroy me in the comment section, but eh, like I said, these are my opinions. You have yours, I have mine. So it's damn 12:10 in the morning, and I'm about to get off because if I don't, I'll talk forever. So tell me what you think. I really want to know. If I'm wrong, let me know.